This week in Erie, we are taking a closer look at politics in the upcoming session in the State House and looking ahead to what could be happening in politics not only in Erie or the Commonwealth, but also at national level. Joining us today is State Representative Ryan Bizzarro, Democratic Representative of the 3rd District. Ryan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Can I fill in permanently for Sean now? And they said I'm not in session.
We do need vacation relief, so we'll talk to Sean after we talk about all of this.
All right,
but
count
I'd love
me
to
in.
have you up here.
All right,
So you've served in the district since 2013.
Yes.
What is different from when you served that first year that probably seems like so many years ago to the one that you're going into this year?
It's really crazy to think that almost 7 years have went by since I first got sworn into office. Many changes have happened in the legislature, not just, of course, in numbers, and Democrats getting closer to the majority. We're now 9 away from being in the majority, so I'm happy about that. At least we'll be a little bit more relevant down in Harrisburg. But just the political climate. When I first got elected, I did not think it could get any worse. I thought the 2012 election was about as nasty as it was going to get, and people would it would simmer down. Certainly that hasn't been the case. Things have ramped up. We see hate is it's just there's no shortage of it. People tend to now be offended by every little thing that you say, and as lawmakers and as people who are involved in politics, you have to be careful about what you say and how you say it, because the most harmless thing can now be taken out of context, and it's an unfortunate climate that we're living in. But nonetheless, I'm a glutton for punishment, and I continue to still do it. So.
Well, and one of the ways you serve too, and ways that you can make a difference, committees. Tell us about what you're involved with coming up.
Sure. Every legislative session, we're either reappointed or appointed to new committees. I have actually been appointed to Chief Deputy Whip, so that has been really raising my profile in Harrisburg and allowing me to bring tangible results back to Erie through various grants and other initiatives that we're pushing in Harrisburg to make sure that Erie is included in it. I serve on the Judiciary Committee. I'm a member of the Subcommittee of Courts. I'm on the Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee. I'm on the Consumer Affairs Committee, and of course I'm on the Insurance Committee, given that Erie Insurance is our hub here in Erie, and they need a local voice.
Well, and when it comes to your constituents, what are some of the biggest concerns you get in your office from people who come in or who call? What's their biggest concern?
We deal with a wide variety of concerns, from as simple as PennDOT issues to issuing handicap placards to helping with property tax and rent rebates, or to people coming with major policy concerns, whether we have the folks from Fair Districts PA coming in talking about how they feel that fair districts will benefit everyone, to environmental groups, to people who are for natural gas, so on and so forth. We deal with every kind of issue. Our biggest issues have been really with that deal with professional licensing, whether it's new changes to the barber's license or helping nurses receive their license or real estate license. We've been sort of pushing and expediting those things for local folks here so they can start getting to work.
Well, I think that a lot of people don't realize that you have involvement in that.
You would be surprised what your local legislator can do for you, and I urge people that you don't just have to reach out to my office. You can certainly reach out to any legislator, and they should be willing to help you. If they're not willing to, come see me and I will.
You'll take care of it.
I'll take care of them.
Let's talk to you about September and heading back to the Capitol. I know you have an important bill, House Bill 128. Tell us about that.
128 has been House Bill 120 has been a very important bill of mine. I started it at the end of last session. Unfortunately, we ran out of time, so Representative Rosemary Brown and I introduced it again this session. It's a bipartisan bill that I co-authored with a Republican colleague of mine, where it establishes the Pennsylvania First-Time Home Buyer Savings Account. I think it's really important for people to be able to achieve the American dream. I think home ownership is the embodiment of the American dream. So Representative Rosemary Brown and I established this account, which is sort of like a college savings account, but for first-time home buyers, whereas you can, per individual, $5,000 a year, or per couple, $10,000 a year, and you could get a tax write-off for that
and you're
on
hopeful?
your state income tax. I'm hopeful because it's out of the House and it's in the Senate now, so I'm hopeful that there will be some traction on it. Unless, of course, politics comes into play and they don't want to run any Democratic bills, and that always happens too. Unfortunately, we let politics get in the way of good public policy, and we see that more and more, not just in Harrisburg, but also in Washington, D.C.
Well, let's talk to you about when it comes to the House Bill 28, back to that, 128. How does that help people specifically in your district?
Of course, I want to attract people to not only invest in Pennsylvania to set up roots there, but I want them to invest in the 3rd Legislative District. That helps the property values in not only Erie County, but also in the 3rd District, in Mill Creek, or in McCain, Washington Township, at Edinboro. It's important. Families want their children to stay local, and I think that we should give every tool necessary for them to do so.
Well, and a lot of people in Erie will say that Erie's often forgotten when it comes to Harrisburg. But just last week we had what, $10.5 million in grants.
That is a misnomer.
Tell us about that, please.
I gotta tell you something. I've been to 64 of the 67 counties here in Pennsylvania. I have to tell you that I'm a little disappointed in Erie County because they have such a low value of themselves and their own self-image. When I talk to my colleagues, and when I bring my colleagues up here, they can't believe all the things that Erie has to offer. They can't believe how much money that we're getting in comparison to other regions. I challenge the people who have such a negative look on this community to go to other communities comparable in size, see what they have to offer, see what they're getting, the dollars that are coming back to there, and then tell me how bad you have it in Erie County. I guarantee you'll be singing a different tune.
Well, and it's hard to, when we see that $10.5 million, how happy were you to see that investment in Erie County?
That's a great investment. That is capital investment spread out throughout the county. And that's just from the parts that affect the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd legislative districts. That's not counting the investment that's coming in Corey, in Kurt Sonny's district, or the things that are happening in the lower part. Michelle Brooks, Senator Brooks, has a portion of Erie County. She did a separate release for some of the money that she's bringing back. So there's more money that's actually being brought to the region than people are aware of.
Let's talk about, we have to talk about gun violence. Recently, State Representative Movita Johnson Herald, Philadelphia, she held a committee on public policy concerning gun violence in the Commonwealth. Do you see something happening here?
Sure. I am also vice chairman of the House Democratic Policy Committee. Rep. Johnson has a personal story with this issue. Her son was gunned down, so it's personal for her. As a policymaker, I'm not ashamed to say that I don't know the right reason on how to address this issue, because what you and I might think is an appropriate reform, someone might think it is a major infringement on their Second Amendment. Whether that's right or wrong, unfortunately, that's the argument that's being made. I will never not be for responsible gun ownership. I think the biggest obstacle in any type of meaningful gun reform is that we've made it into a political issue. Not to no pun intended, but we've weaponized the issue. We've turned it into a Democrat versus Republican issue, a liberal versus conservative issue, instead of what the core issue is. It's a right and wrong issue. And something's got to give. We are eventually going to have to address this issue one way or another. I do think there has to be a common ground where both sides can finally hammer out some details and start somewhere. You have to be able to start somewhere. No matter, I live by a third of the people are going to love the decisions you make, a third are going to hate them, and a third of them are going to be indifferent. You've got to get 51% of those indifferent people on board to support what you're doing moving forward. And I think all legislators need to try to do that in their districts.
I know one thing, too, you're known for in the district is providing seniors, veterans, easy access, or at least allowing them to learn what is out there, because there's so much out there to help them. Specifically, you do have an expo coming up for a senior fair and older living expo. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. I'm proud to say that we are one of the busiest legislative offices in the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and that is the first time that it has ever been on, since I've been elected, Erie's been in the top 10 for the services provided. So I owe it all to the staff that I have. They're great. They're great with the community. They're public servants in their own rights, and I'm blessed to have them. But yeah, in my office we do a Veterans Assistance Program. That's the second Tuesday of every month, where we have a representative from the VFW come in, go over specific issues with veterans and help them get their federal benefits. Again, we're a state office, so we're really kind of limited to what we can do federally, so that's why we have them come in, set up shop.
And that's at your office at 12th and Stertania?
Yeah, 12th and Peninsula Drive.
Peninsula Drive.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. I got the Senior Expo coming up. It's our 7th annual one. We expect anywhere between 1,400 to 1,700 people coming in the door. It's on Monday, August 19th at McDowell Intermediate High School. I'm really happy about the turnout that we get there. It's a great time, and I encourage everybody to come to
And
it.
it's free. We need to let everybody know from 9 to noon on the 19th.
It is free from 9 to noon, and I encourage everybody to come. You have almost 80 vendors. What do we also refreshments, coffee, a bunch of goodies there. So stop by, please stop by.
Tell me too about what is the Healthcare Navigator?
So there's a lot of issues with people. Healthcare, obviously, is a very complex issue in getting insurance, particularly with what we've just seen with Highmark and UPMC. So we have a healthcare navigator that comes into the office, and they call my office. We'll set up an appointment for them. It's for free, where they help people make the appropriate decision and how to choose the coverage that's best for them and their families.
And that's just by calling your office. You can set that appointment up. Okay, let's turn the tables now. Future elections, on the minds of many. We've seen a couple of the Democratic candidate debates coming up. A lot of eyes on that presidential race, but there's also been some rumors about you floating around. And I've got you here. I'm going to ask you. We've heard your name mentioned for Congress against incumbent Mike Kelly, maybe even the state Senate. Can you comment at all on any of that?
Look, I will say this. It's rather, I would rather be looked over than overlooked, in the sense that I'm glad that leaders, both in the federal government and at our state government, are watching what I'm doing. And not only watching what I'm doing, but seeing how people are reacting to what I'm doing. And the fact that people are acting positive to what I'm doing, that makes me feel good as a legislator, knowing that I am actually helping people and people are pleased with the job I'm doing. I'm honored and humbled to be selected for both. But I'm not going to commit either way. Now, I'm not going to be pushed in a corner to try to make a decision because the parties want me to. I'm going to make the decisions that's best for me and best for the people that I represent.
Well, and there's some rumors, though, too, floating around. I hate to report on rumors, but we're hearing them, too, that some of these higher-ups have even done some polling, which is a pretty serious step.
Yeah. So unbeknownst to me, yes, the Senate Democrats did do a poll. They commissioned an independent poll. They polled me and several other local folks here to see how we would test our viability. And yes, the poll did happen. And I'm pleased to say that I did better than any other Democratic candidate in the poll. And if anybody is to take out the sitting senator, it would be me. But I haven't made a decision on what I'm going to do yet. I don't just run for an office just to run for something. I don't think that's good politics, and I don't subscribe to that. I think if you have to run, or you do run against somebody, you should know why you're running against them, and you should be able to kind of paint a clear picture of the differences between the two of you and how to proceed moving forward, why you are the better candidate.
So no denial, but you're just not willing to commit to that just yet. So we'll check in.
I'm not willing to commit to anything yet. I will commit to one thing, though. I will commit to continuing to represent the people of this region to the best of my ability. Nothing makes me happier than when I see a positive comment, because you barely ever get positive comments on social media. Everybody's got an opinion for everything, and they cut you up for everything. But when an overwhelming amount of people call me the people's representative, and that makes me feel good. I'm honored to have and humbled to have that title from the community.
So Ryan, and then lastly, I'd like to ask you too about that crowded political field for the Democratic presidential nomination. What do you make of that, being a Democrat going into what's bound to be a pretty combative race?
It is going to be a pretty combative race. I disagree with the manner in which they are conducting themselves right now. I think a lot of them are going after one another, and they're severely damaging one another going into a general election, whoever that person, whoever he or she may be. I think they need to tone down the rhetoric, clearly describe the differences in policy stances where they stand, and just promote themselves moving forward. If the key is to unsit the sitting president, then you have to go with the best candidate moving forward. The voters will ultimately determine that, but they shouldn't. Democrats shouldn't tear one another down in the process of doing that.
It's going to be an interesting year, right?
It is going to be interesting for you, yes. Terrible for folks who are in it like me.
Well, I'm sure we will talk with you again, though. I thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
This week in Erie County.
Thank you.
State Representative Ryan Bizzarro from the 3rd Legislative District.